And we are live, or live to tape. Hi, everyone. Welcome to PWTorch's Fireside Chats. I'm joined today by the legendary Lenny Leonard. Lenny, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Great. Like most interviews, we start with bona fides. I mean, your list, if anyone, has been watching, I hate to even call it independent wrestling, but really non-cable television wrestling in, the last 20 years. I mean, we got ROH, I think, I have you like 05 to 09-ish, that sort of late Cornette run. We've got Evolve, Dragon Gate USA, Shine. And then recently we've got your latest run in Ring of Honor, where you're focused on the women's division, and GCW, which you're the biggest show at the Hammerstein Ballroom. I was present for, so I did not hear your call as of yet, but we were in the same room together a couple of times in recent years. And very recently you were in calling for Women's Wrestling Army and for Terminus, Jonathan Gresham's promotion in Atlanta. So thanks for joining me. And if there's anything else you want to get in on your bona fides there, please get it in right now.
No, I think you hit all the high spots. A couple of indie stops here and there beforehand,
yeah,
and during the middle, but you got all the big stuff.
That's good. Yeah. So very excited to have you. And let's start. If people are watching this, are probably they might have seen your posts on, I think it was more your personal post on Twitter, but your notes app posting of, you're stepping away from wrestling. So please just, kind of give our audience, your reasoning for it, and just like, not that you have to give a reason, but, just kind of let us know how you're feeling and what's going on and where you are right now with wrestling.
Yeah, I kind of had been getting the feeling that the day had been coming for a while. It's one of those things, while you're in the middle of it, it's usually kind of tough to know when that time is. You never want to kind of overstay your welcome and, end up like, Willie Mays stumbling around in center field past your prime and hanging on too long. So you always want to kind of go out when you think the time is right. And it just started to feel more and more like the time was right. I had done more than I ever hoped or thought I'd ever be able to do in wrestling. Evolve had gotten sold to WWE a couple years ago, right when COVID was going on, which really kind of put a crimp into stuff, because that was really the only place I had worked for the longest time, was just doing the Evolve. If you look back, I've been doing it for 20 years, but I really haven't worked a whole lot of places. It was ROH from 2005 to 2009. Dragon Gate and Evolve were the same company from 2009 to 2019. And even Shine was kind of under that umbrella as well. And Shimmer was kind of loosely affiliated there as well. So I'd really only worked one place for a really long time. And when WWE, bought it and then shut it down just to get the library, it kind of closed a pretty big door in the chapter of my wrestling life at that point. And I was kind of just figuring out what was going to happen. And, I had started doing Dragon Gate stuff in Japan also in 2019. They had started bringing me over to do some of the big shows. And the plan was 19 and 20 to come over and do like their 4 big shows a year for an American audience. And then COVID kind of killed that, and they couldn't get anybody in the country for 3 years. So it just became harder and harder to find places to work, really, in that, most companies are not flying. Most indie companies are not flying play-by-play guys around. It's somebody who's usually local or somehow affiliated with the promoter or the booker, or somebody who kind of worked their way up within the company. So it's not like, other than really Veda Scott, nobody's flying around the country doing commentary. It's a cost-saving spot in most promotions. So it just kind of limited the opportunity for me. And then couple that with, a family and growing kids and a very busy shoot job outside of wrestling, in that I am a division leader for JP Morgan Chase. I run the auto and student lending executive office. So I'm dealing with the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, the OCC, Attorney General's offices, things like that on a daily basis. So it takes a lot of time, and that kind of cut into some of the stuff I was doing with Terminus, because they were running stuff during the week. And even though Atlanta's pretty close, it just midweek shows just kind of made it tough to balance with a work thing, and it wasn't really fair for Gresham to have to keep finding somebody on shows that I couldn't commit to. And then so more and more the picture kind of started getting a little clearer that, you know, there wasn't a spot in AEW. There was never going to be a spot in WWE. Impact had moved on to Tom Phillips. There was really no spot there. So really just a dwindling marketplace for an aging play-by-play guy who had been around a long time. And I just finally got to the point where I think it's about time. And then WWA was supposed to run here in Tampa, actually, and Orlando in September. And there were some issues with the buildings and dates getting messed up. And they ended up having to push those shows back. And once that happened, literally like the day after they made the call that they were going to have to move those shows, I'm like, that was the last sign I think I was looking for. It's time to find the exit. And I just kind of wanted to throw it out there. I didn't want to make a big thing of it. I actually did it pretty much on the down low, and that I gave Maria and Bobby Cruz, Maria Kanellis and Bobby Cruz, kind of the heads up that it was coming. And I kind of just went on Twitter and all my socials and changed everything from Lenny Leonard to my shoot name to Lenny Thomas. And then a couple of people kind of picked up on it and started messaging me, and I was kind of ignoring it. And then a few more people started asking, and I was like, well, I guess I better say something now before people just start drawing their own conclusions. So I kind of just then threw it all out there that, you know, I'm not going to say retire because, one, nobody in wrestling ever retires, and wrestling was never the way I really, you know, paid my bills and fed my family. So I don't know that you get to retire from something that wasn't your career. It was something I did, something I love doing, and something I still love doing. I never fell out of love with wrestling or my enjoyment for being a part of it, but it just seemed like that chapter of my life was ready to close, I think.
I gotcha. And, you know, I think you might be the only person I've ever talked to, at least in wrestling, and that I've heard of, that didn't just crush someone coming up within the system, right, to keep your spot, right? So I think that can be your legacy, is that you were not a guy in wrestling who squashed people below him to keep his spot no matter what. So I think that, at least for me, is very heartening. Yeah.
It doesn't cost anything to be a good person, and it doesn't matter what line of work you're in or what you do. I told, I don't know if you can curse on here or not, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah,
anyway.
you can.
I told my kids, I have one job as a parent, to make sure that you're not an asshole when you leave my house. Yeah. Right. So I try to teach my kids to be good people and do the right thing. And if somebody asks for help, you help them. And I've been fortunate the last few years to kind of be something that I never got to have. And that was to have, you know, a person who's been around and who has broadcast some big stuff over the years. I wouldn't say be a mentor, but just be a sounding board, be around to kind of just, you know, help give some tips and here and there's to folks who were willing to ask. And I was honored, you know, to have people, you know, reach out to me and say, hey, can you watch my stuff? Can you give me some pointers? Can you take notes? People have reached out to me, you know, a lot over the last few years. And I felt it my responsibility really to do that. It's you should always try to leave places better than they were before you got there. So even now I tell people who touch base with me, if you know anything you need, just reach out. And, you know, maybe take me a while because real life kind of gets in the way and sometimes I'm slow with watching things, but I will always try to give as honest and helpful feedback as I can to anybody who you know is looking to better themselves, right? And that's something that I didn't have. Like I don't know if a lot of people know, like I don't have a broadcasting background. I didn't go to college to study announcing. I didn't have a communications degree. I kind of fell into it. I loved wrestling my whole life. I became friends with a guy who owned an indie promotion here in Florida. He got stuck for a ring announcer one day, and he literally threw me out there in a t-shirt and shorts with like 10 minutes notice. And I started ring announcing, which then kind of led me to FIP, which is meeting Sal, which then kind of led me to Gabe, which led me to Ring of Honor. It was just like a series of fortunate events that kind of kept leading me places and into doing something that I never actually even sought out to do. I never thought I'd do anything in wrestling but buy a ticket. And I ended up standing in the middle of the ring on the WWE network likely as the only person to ever call a live independent wrestling show that'll ever happen on the WWE network. So that's a pretty cool thing to take with me on my way out the door, I guess.
For sure. And the guy in that main event is pretty integral to their plans right now with this.
Yeah.
Because Austin Theory, as he was, I think his name is now.
He's Austin Theory again, apparently.
Yes. So very, very exciting. So, but yeah, so that is a monumental moment. And like, you know, the best ability is availability sometimes, right, in this industry. And I think being a good person is maybe a little anathema to people in the industry, but that's all I've ever heard about you, is that and I think you're showing that there. And that's kind of wanted to bring that up and give you the shine on, you know, not, like I said, not holding on too long, I think is a thing that a lot of people in life and not like,
I think in pretty much every walk of life, people in this country have heard enough from 50-year-old white guys. It's pretty much time to listen to somebody else for a while, I think.
Yeah.
Am I still good enough to do it? Yeah. Do I still like it enough to keep doing it? Yeah. But does it mean I should still keep doing it? Well, maybe not. You know what I mean? It's time to let another voice go. And I even started that a little bit in motion with WWA. When Bobby and Maria paired me with Alyssa Marino, like before the first show, like I hadn't even talked to anybody about it. We were literally just kind of going over production notes, and I said, "Hey, just my idea, but I'm interested in what you think. I think Alyssa needs to be the voice that people hear first on this show. You're promoting women's empowerment. You're promoting a space for women to kind of learn and grow and test themselves and show the world what they can do. I don't think it makes sense, even if I've been around longer and I'm kind of the bigger name. I'm not the person who should be the first person that somebody hears from. It needs to be Alyssa. And I think she needs to do play-by-play. And I think I should do color. And I will be happy to play second fiddle because I think it's the right thing to do. And everybody at once all said, that's a great idea. And that's kind of what we went with for the first, 10 shows that aired on TV and stuff. So I thought it was important to kind of start preparing, for the next wave of people to come along and do it. And there's a lot of talent out there. They just need a chance to get out there and do it.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And if we can focus on the past, just one more question here, and then we'll kind of talk about current, future, all stuff. But for viewers out there that maybe haven't watched, maybe they're more like me, like I said at the top of the show, watching more the last, I guess post-pandemic version of you on commentary. Is there anything like that you're extremely proud of in the ring, that you've called, that you want people to go back to? There's any, like, the biggest moments, the sizzle reel of you, or just like the biggest match you ever called, or just anything like that you want to get out there?
I was lucky to be partners with Dave Prazak during what a lot of people still refer to as the glory days of Ring of Honor, 2005 to 2009. That was the summer of Punk kind of winning the title and getting ready to leave to make the jump to WWE, into the Bryan Danielson reign, into Takeshi Morishima, Nigel McGuinness, and then kind of capping my career off there with Seth Rollins and Tyler Black back then, kind of winning the championship right on my way out the door as they made their way into a television product. And then I was hugely proud of the first ever Dragon Gate 6-man that main evented a WrestleMania weekend in Detroit. That was my first quote unquote 5-star match that I got to call. That one's always going to be special. And that kind of led to me being involved with Japanese wrestling for the next 15 years or so. I was proud of a lot. I was proud that I did so much of my career solo, which was a lost art. Like, nobody really did it. It was pretty much Gordon Soley did it for a long time, and then nobody did it for a very long time, and then Joey Styles did it for a while during ECW, and then nobody did it again for a very long time. Then I got to do it for a pretty significant amount of time, and again, including the WWE Network show, which I give credit to Triple H. I didn't know I was going to be calling that show until literally a couple of days before. It was still up in the air. They hadn't made the decision on either if they were going to have somebody from their end call it, or if they were going to have somebody from there with me. But Hunter, to his credit, told Gabe, no, I want this to be an Evolve show. And it needs to be true to what Evolve is. And Lenny's your announcer and he does it by himself. Let him go. they made the call to let me call it solo. So I'll always be proud of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. I do have kind of a question I didn't think I'd have until you answered that question there. So it's similar to the, and you don't have to get anything you don't want to here, but like as AEW, Tony Khan, however you want to look at it, owns that ROH library now. If that is, let's say on a streaming service, as far as you know, is there any sort of, do you get any cut of that, or is that something that was totally mismanaged above you at that time, and you're just going to live for free on some streaming service in the future? Your voice.
Well, I can say that the only period where I was under actual contract to Ring of Honor was, I believe, 07 and 08. So anything 05, 06, and 09, I was working on a handshake. So I guess if I wanted to make a stink, I could probably say I never signed away my rights to any of that stuff. But I mean, that's not me. I'm not going to do it. If somebody wants to go back and watch me at the beginning of my career and enjoy it or not enjoy it and say I'm the shits, or because I was not very good back then. Prazak was carrying me a lot, which is also why I was glad I got to work with him so much later in our careers as well, when I kind of had it figured out a little bit better. It's like anything in life, right? If you knew then what you knew now, you'd be a little dangerous, right? So I learned a lot from working with Dave, and I enjoy kind of hearing people. First, I used to cringe because a lot of the boys and girls in the back would come up and say, "Oh my God, I used to watch you in ROH when I was in high school, or when I was in middle school, and you and Prazak were so good. I loved you guys." I'm like, man, am I that old? Like, it used to be like, oh, just stick the knife in a little deeper.
Yeah.
But more and more, I came to really appreciate it, and understood that Dave and I in that period of wrestling had a really big impact on a lot of people who were discovering really indie wrestling for the first time, perhaps in their lives. And it's cool. I will never feel bad now about somebody saying they used to watch me way back when. I appreciate, I guess the older I get, the more it's nice just to be remembered at all, I guess, right?
Yeah, for sure. Especially, I mean, that's more people my age probably that were coming back to you. I mean, I'm in my mid 30s, early 30s. So, that is like the version of what kind of ECW was to the 90s, of people that, that's like the cool thing, right? You and Dave were calling the cool show in 2005. Yeah. You had John Cena and Randy Orton with the other show, and you guys were doing the stuff that now every star basically in the industry you called for a 4-year period of time. I mean, it is kind of incredible. And, it was a cheeky question by me. I was kind of half hoping you'd be in character and say that you're the reason holding up the Ring of Honor library on the streaming service. But yeah. I think we'll see, but I think that a resurgence of Lenny Leonard will occur when people can easily access that material and don't have to tape trade DVDs from that era.
Yes.
Like they do now.
That would be cool. I hope they do something cool with it. I have obviously no insight to what their plans or what Tony's idea is, and how he's kind of looking to revamp or relaunch Ring of Honor going forward. I hope whatever he does, that Ian Riccaboni and Caprice Coleman have a place there. Excuse me, as they are every bit the team in ROH that Dave and I were. There's a really good kinship between ROH announcers over the years, between me and Dave and Bobby Cruz as the ring announcer, and then Kevin Kelly and I became friends through social media, and Steve Carino and I became friends because I'm really good friends with his sister. And then Ian kind of taking over after Hogwood and Kevin Kelly kind of changed things. So we all kind of really have grown to appreciate our place and what it meant to be the announcer for that company. So it's a nice kind of camaraderie that we all have with one another. And I hope Ian and Caprice get to keep doing it because they're really good at what they do. And I'm a big fan of both of theirs. So.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. I think they are underrated as talents as you and Dave were back in the day to the general audience, right? So I think those correlations are apt. So I want to pivot now to current time, and I'm just curious, Lenny, like what kind of wrestling are you? You said you're still, you've never lost your passion for wrestling, and are you currently watching anything, or are you taking a break from watching it? that now that you're taking a step back, or kind of what's your current habit on wrestling, and then kind of your thoughts on the industry in general right now?
I do still try to watch when I can. My time constraints make it difficult sometimes to watch as much as I'd like. I will always keep up with the news. I got my PWTorch subscription, and I still have my connections with Uncle Dave, and so I still stay abreast of the news, and even with all the new guys on the block, like Sean Ross Sapp and everybody, not to plug anybody's competitors, but
I do it all the time. Don't worry.
I read everybody. I try to be well read when it comes to the business. So, but I do still watch. Obviously, I still have so many friends in all of these companies, and I'm happy that there's a chance for all of these guys and girls that I knew way back when they were making $150 wrestling in front of 300 people, that now have the chance to be on TV every week. So to see, Kingston and Brian and Punk and Claudio and young kids like Wheeler Yuta and the Bucks and guys like that, and it's awesome to me. So I try to keep tabs and keep up with everything that's going on. I don't have time to watch everything, but when I hear you have to watch this, if I haven't seen it, I'll always try to make sure I go back and try and find it and make sure I can kind of watch it and see what's going on, because I love my friends being successful. That makes me super happy. I also prided myself. You asked me one thing that I was proud of. I'm proud that I never got bitter that I didn't make it. Like Eddie was the same way too. Eddie Kingston never got bitter. He never begrudged anybody, being successful and making money. He just kept grinding until he got there too. And I'm super happy for him because I love that guy. I just didn't have any more grind left in me, I guess, is the difference between me and Eddie. So, but still happy for everybody that did, kind of get there and get the chance to kind of live their dream on a much bigger stage. Because I think it's cool that everybody gets to see them now.
Yeah. Well, as someone who also has a full-time job like you do, and then this is all the fun stuff, right? It is there's a difference there. And then I think, like you said, parallels with Eddie. I think that's why Eddie Kingston is such a beloved human being and character on TV by a lot of the audience, because I think that's very easily seen. And
he's relatable.
Yeah. And again, not to bring it about me, I'm the interviewer, you're the interviewee, but I like that resonates so much with me. And I think with lots of people that are going to be watching this, of this is, everyone's got their shoot job, as you said. And that's got to be number one to provide for our families and whatnot. But at some point, the fact that, I would say that you made it easily, because I think most people would be like, if they could do what you did. I mean, so, and you're just being modest, which is appreciated, but I'll be not modest for you, is that all the things you did, I think people will be very excited to do and appreciate. And like I said, I think when that streaming service is available at some point too, I think, I think your resurgence will be mighty, with lots of wrestlers and commentators out there. So
I've never been good at putting myself over. I'm self-deprecating to a fault. But I think that's the nature of a play-by-play guy, right? It's not my job to be over. It's my job to get the boys and girls that are in the ring over. That's my job. And if I did that, then I'm happy. And I don't care if anybody thinks I'm good. I don't care if I get it. It was cool to get votes for announcer of the year and stuff like that, but that's never why I did it. I never did it to chase a job. I never did it to chase a contract. I did it. And the more I did it, it was more to tell the stories the way that, Gabe wanted them told when he was writing them, the way that the boys and girls wanted them told when they were coming up with their matches. If they were happy, then I was happy. And that's all I really cared about. And I knew a long time ago I was never going to get to be JR and be like that guy in the WWE that everybody wanted to call, now AEW, that everybody wanted to call their matches. But if I could be that guy on the indies, that to me was enough. I wanted to be the guy that everybody wanted to call their indie match on a big show. And I think I got pretty close to where that was, the case in a lot of ways. So from that, I couldn't have asked for more for the last 20 years. I got to travel. I got to have a real job that pays me really good money and takes care of my family very, very well. And then on weekends, a couple times a month, I got to go and just have fun with my friends and see the world and see the country and get to watch some really cool wrestling from the best seat in the house. So I got the best of both worlds. So I could never be bitter about my time in wrestling, even if I tried. If I ever did, it would be completely unwarranted.
Cool. I got 2 more questions for you. The first one is a kind of a how the sausage is made question. So you can divert that if you'd like to, but since you're, stepping back, maybe you want to talk about it. But I'm curious, you hear a lot about people, like you said, Jim Ross or people that worked for, WWE in the past, whatever, when performers would come up to them and maybe not love the way that they were being presented by the announce team or, so on the indie scene, I'm very curious, like, if you've never called someone before, do you just watch their tape and kind of know their moves, or do you play it by ear, or do they come to you? Kind of, I know that's a wide question, but kind of what's
it's a good question. In fact, it's one of the things when I'm talking to young announcers that I try to impress upon them about how important it is to do is make sure you get with the talent. Ask them. Like, I always would want to know, do you call a move a certain name? What do you want me to put over? What's the story, not just of, your angle? What's the story of the match? Like, what story are you two girls trying to tell in this match? And some of the performers are really, really good about giving you a lot of feedback. Like, I think about guys like, Sami Zayn was really good about that back when he was, no, he's always been Sami Zayn. He's never been anybody else. He didn't go to Mexico and take care of the orphans. No. He was always very good about that, his time on the indies. Chris Hero was probably the best ever about that. Claudio Castagnoli was good about that. Daniel Bryan was good about that. And the guys who had a great deal of success had a very particular way that they wanted to be presented, and they made sure that you knew exactly what they wanted you to know. So I always make sure when I talk to young announcers, if you don't have anything, right? Sometimes it's a cold match, right? Sometimes it's just 2 guys or 2 girls thrown together, go wrestle because we've got 8 to 10 minutes we got to kill before we get to this other stuff that people are going to be really invested in. And there's no real story behind why they're fighting. So try to find something you can talk about to fill that time. Find out about their background, find out about what their interests are, find out about, what they've done with their lives. Where have you been? How long have you wrestled? Where have you trained? Like, tell me all of that stuff. Now some companies don't like you talking about other companies, so you kind of have to work around that. Like, that was always a thing. ROH was always a very self-contained universe. You didn't talk about anybody else. That's changed a lot recently. Ian got a lot more freedom to kind of talk about things like that. But back in Dave and my day, that was it. ROH was the bubble. You didn't talk about anybody else. But as I kind of grew and was able to do that, I would find ways to kind of weave that stuff in. And so the big thing is communicate with the talent, communicate with the booker. Hey, ask them, hey, what are you trying to get across here? Where you don't have to tell me where it's going, because I don't want to give anything away before it's supposed to be there. But what do you want out of this match? And a good booker should be able to give you that. Gabe was always very good about that. At first, he would give me tons of stuff. But then as we kind of got more comfortable with each other, it became more just, all right, make sure you hit. He would give me bullet points. Make sure you hit this. Never a ton of verbiage. Like, you don't have to say it exactly like this, but here's the gist of what we're looking for, and you can kind of make it your own. So he was always good about that. And we would basically spend 15. It got to the point where we had kind of streamlined it to where it was 15 minutes tops before a show. We would just run down the show real quick, 1 through 8. Here are the matches. Here's what's going on. Here's what I need you. Anything you need from me? No, I'm good. See you later. And we both kind of go on our ways. And then I would go do my research and whatever I didn't already have done. I would. That's the other thing too, is I always tried to pride myself on being very, very prepared, almost over prepared, to the point where I had like this huge book when I was involved that literally had all 100 and I forget how many we ended up with, 148, 149, every single show, the results from all of them in this binder that I would carry with me to every show. And I would go back through and try to identify, all right, how many times did these guys wrestle each other before? Who won? What happened? And I'd try to be able to incorporate that stuff. And you don't always use all of it. Better too much information, not enough. But I always tried to kind of be prepared. That's why I never wanted to have anybody watching a match of theirs and think that I didn't give a shit or I was just kind of blowing it off, because they're going out there and they're putting their body and their lives on the line. The least I can do is be prepared and try to tell the story that I could. So that was always my big advice for people who would ask me about stuff for tips on announcing. Is get as much information as you can and just figuring out when to use it is the stuff that comes with repetitions and understanding, the layout of a match. Just as a wrestler needs to understand how a match is laid out, announcers need to understand that too, so you know when to say certain things. Like, you don't want to talk about Chris Hero doing all of these cool things when Bryan Danielson's got him in a hammerlock and Bryan Danielson is the one on offense, right? It doesn't make sense to be talking about Chris Hero and Bryan Danielson is the guy with the advantage, right? So it's just teaching young announcers like how, not just how, but when to kind of say things.
Cool. I mean, great.
I never had when I was younger.
Yeah. That's so, all that is so interesting to me. And I think it will be for the audience too. But I just now want to watch like an old show that you called and just get like every bit of information you got that day of from those wrestlers and hear it all. So maybe a future series. We'll see. We'll talk after.
And for me, I was lucky in that a lot of times I got to do it myself. So I didn't have to worry about, letting somebody else kind of get their stuff in and make sure that they were, which is good too. It's a different kind of skill to be able to have that conversational style back and forth. But when it's just me, I had to be able to switch from, all right, now I'm calling the play-by-play, and now I have to give the analysis also after what I just talked about. So I'm saying, all right, he's doing this as the play-by-play guy, and now I have to kind of pivot and say, well, why is it working? Why is it not working? Why does it hurt? Why does it not hurt? And then kind of jump back and forth, which that was a skill I kind of fell into it. I don't know why. One day they just threw me out there by myself and I kind of pulled it off. And then I guess they said, well, I guess he doesn't need anybody. And they just let me keep doing it. It's a way to save a few bucks, I guess.
There you go. Yeah. That's the true answer right there. The wrestling biz, right? Saving a couple bucks. That's funny. Okay. So last question I have for you is a personal question for you. And it's about wrestling still, but in recent vintage, you've called a lot of women's wrestling with the women's wrestling army. You called a lot of technical wrestling with the Ring of Honor stuff and with Terminus, and you've called a lot of, let's say, it's some of my favorite wrestling is GCW wrestling, but a lot of death matches, a lot of kind of high spots in the indie scene. And I'm just curious, like, you personally, like, what is your go-to type of wrestling? And if there, you don't have to say there's a type of wrestling you don't like, but if there is a type of wrestling you don't like, is that harder for you to call? Is it maybe easier because you're kind of like in the work mode, or just how does that go? Or are you just like all kinds of
I
wrestling?
don't think there's any. Yeah, no, it's a good question. I don't think there's any wrestling I don't like. There's definitely wrestling I prefer more, but I don't think there's any wrestling I don't like, because I can appreciate the art in all of it. And even like deathmatch wrestling is probably not my biggest cup of tea, but I can appreciate the art form and how hard these guys and girls work and the pride they take in what they do, and how difficult it is to get a reaction from a crowd who has literally seen everything but somebody basically pull out a gun and shoot the guy or girl next to them. So there's no wrestling I don't like. I would say I probably lean more towards the pure wrestling style of my ROH days. I'm a huge Bronson, huge Cleo Cast in New York. I'm a huge Jonathan Gresham mark. I love Roderick Strong. I just love guys who can wrestle. That's always kind of been my go-to. And then the high flying stuff I really grew to appreciate too when I got to do the Dragon Gate stuff and some lucha stuff as well. So there's no wrestling I don't like, but at my core, like it's pure wrestling is the stuff that kind of really gets me going.
Cool. Well, Lenny, I appreciate you joining me. we could talk forever, I think, but I want to be mindful of your time, but would definitely love to talk again in the future if you ever want to. So just putting that out there here on the internet. But I mean, some great.
I got nothing else to do now.
Yeah. And
nothing but time, apparently.
Yeah.
I may be calling you saying you want to just talk.
Well, there you go. We'll talk off air about that. But yeah, I mean, I was, I'm serious. I think, especially once the ROH stuff is back up there, I mean, I think there's just gonna be a resurgence of you, and the Evolve stuff is harder to get to. I think, that's not on
it's in a vault in Connecticut
it's
now.
in a vault somewhere. Yeah. So, if that ever, I think with the current management there, maybe it's slightly more likely than it was in the past.
He's the one who bought it, so maybe he's got plans for it. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, so I think there's a bright future for the vault of Lenny Leonard out there for everyone that is there and get you the appreciation that you deserve.
Maybe in another 10 years, I'll be the next generation Tony Schiavone, where people they'll start watching the old Dragon Gate and Evolve stuff, and they'll go, wow, Lenny was really good. Somebody needs to bring him back. And then somebody else will start a third promotion. They'll bring me in like Tony.
Yeah. I just need someone out there. I just need you to make $1 billion or have a parent that makes $1 billion.
Yeah.
Then we can do this. So
any of the other 31 NFL owners, if you're offspring or wrestling fans, feel free to look me up. I'm friends with a lot of guys who you could probably use. Although most of them are probably under contract now, but we can work around that.
Yeah, for sure. We got tons of time to work that out. So,
absolutely.
So Lenny, anywhere that you want to send people to, or just anything there? So cool.
I mean, I don't even remember what my new Twitter handle is now, to tell you the truth, since I switched it. What the heck is it now? Hold on, I literally have to go back and read it because I can't remember it.
Yeah, well, that will give your shoot name. So I'm not going to do that unless you want to.
LT from Astoria. That's a throwback to my formative years in Queens, in New York City. So I'm just Lenny from Astoria now, I guess. That's it.
There you go.
I live in Florida.
Yeah. Well, Florida is just New York South, right? So
it's true.
So cool. Well, Lenny, thank you so much for joining me, and appreciate your time here. And I'm sure we'll get lots of great comments. And if there's part 2, if you guys have questions, please drop that below, and be sure to ask that next time we talk with Lenny. But until then, this is Tyler with PWTorch Fireside Chat, and we will see you guys later.